Okay, guys, it's 6:30. So we are going to start. Rod will press record. We're recording now. So it's a kind of welcome back to Wedmore Parish Council meeting held on the 19th of November as we crashed out last night. We're not going to carry on going through the entire agenda because as it kind of all fell apart last night and we all got chucked out, that's the end of that. So this is an extraordinary meeting. And so we need to basically do the grants that have come in because we know that they are in need of being passed. So basically we are now going to go to what was item agenda number 12 to consider a request for a grant by Wedmore Village Hall Committee towards a ventilation system.
Can Alistair? I say that Alistair has already declared an interest in this as a trustee, but it's...
Yes, he declared an interest last night, so yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Alistair, thank you.
Okay. Just to explain the reason I'm doing this is that we formed a committee of Judy, Sue and I to look at the grant application form, as we know. And because I felt that I didn't want anybody to think I was unduly influencing it, so when the application arrived from Rod to me, I passed it on to Judy and to Sue and asked them to review it independently. And then subsequently, they have given me their reaction. I just felt I know Mike's here, so he'll pick me up if I get these wrong. But I was just going to do a brief overview of where we've got to with the Village Hall and the reason for this application. So Mike's been organising a long-term programme to improve the facilities. And over the recent times, we've done a number of things. You're aware of the tiered seating. We've got solar panels on the roof. We've got a battery storage system going. We've been doing the kitchen and the tiered seating in particular has proved popular with our customers at the Arts Festival and at the Theatre Club and so on. So these things have all helped to bring along the Village Hall up to modern standards of lighting and so on. The one thing that we had all thought for some time that the ventilation was one of the things we needed to do. If we have a full house of 160 people, the temperature rises quite quickly because each person is like a little heater, and it increases the temperature and the humidity, and that stale air is rather trapped in the Village Hall as it is, because we don't have much of a means of expelling it except for leaving the door open, which of course not always what you want when some chap on a motorbike goes roaring up the Cheddar Road there. So Mike was talking to me about this ventilation system just at the time I completed doing the application form, so I indicated to him that there was an opportunity if he'd like to put one forward, and that he did with great speed. So I'll just summarise, and if there are any questions, I'm sure Mike will jump in. But basically, he's looked at two companies to look at what was best for the Village Hall in its current state, and the company called Best Air has offered the lowest price, but also technically the best offer in terms of efficiency and in terms of being a very quiet system. The way it works is that the extractor fan and motor is actually going to be mounted on the roof, the flat roof at the back of the Village Hall, and it will remove air, stale air from the Village Hall and expel it to the atmosphere. And that work is become even more necessary than it would have been because of COVID, because the regulations that are governing how many people we can have in the Village Hall at any one time partly depend on how much ventilation that we've got. So Mike has taken that forward and has made an application for £2,500 against the Best Air quote of 5,145. As I mentioned, I'm grateful to Sue and Judy for trawling through all the paperwork that we require, and they have, as they're both present, I'll leave them to say how they found it.
Go ahead, ladies. Whoever wants to go first, Sue.
Yeah, I'm unmuting myself. Yeah, I've been through it all, read everything that we need and ask for on our grants application form has been given to us. And it's quite clear that they need this money to achieve what is, in my consideration, essential for the village hall, especially in these times of COVID. And also I have been in the village hall when it's been full and hot and a bit uncomfortable, and this one seems to be much quieter than all the others, and I would 100% back it.
Lovely. Judy?
I agree. I read it all through. It seems to be future-proofing the village hall. I think, you know, this, even though we get a vaccine, I think that the COVID situation will be coming and going maybe, or different things. You know, we're just going to be more careful in future, aren't we? And I think this means that the village hall will be right up to speed from now on. And I also particularly like the way that this Best Airs all the pipe work was up on the roof outside. You haven't got lots of ugly pipe work up in the roof, and I thought that sounded excellent. It just sounded the best one all round, really. I don't think there's any argument that Best Air are doing the best deal, and it's going to be look the best as well. So yeah, I would recommend that we give the grant.
Okay, I've got Jo with her hand up. I think we all want to know what you're cooking for supper, actually, Jo.
We're having pork medallions.
Oh, yum. Great.
Can I come?
And Eleanor's having a sample version. I just wanted to ask, obviously the noise level that you've described, is that the noise internal to the village hall, or is that the noise that people will hear, those people who live in the vicinity of the village hall? So when you go up Manor Lane, you've got Brambley's, or whatever it's called, the first house behind, and those houses that are kind of around the village hall, will they hear anything when it's on?
Who's best to answer that, Mike or Alistair?
Well, I think I defer to Mike. He's the expert on this.
Go ahead, over to you, Mike.
I'm muting. Right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's a very good question. The system has a silencer built into it in the design, and the problem with noise, I'm told by Best Air, is that it's the diameter of the pipe, which is why they're specifying quite big pipes and a silencer, and the vent that would come out of the fan would be even bigger than the pipes. So the speed of air coming out of the vent itself will be even slower than the air in the pipes itself. So I actually don't know the answer to the question, but we could certainly ask Best Air that. But I can't imagine that, you know, the air coming out of it would make much noise. I don't suppose it would.
No, I just guess, you know, as obviously the parish council, we're representing all our parishioners, so it would just be a question that I'm sure people who lived around it would be interested to know the answer to.
I suppose I've got one answer to it, which is we already have on that roof a big fan that takes all of the fumes from the cooker, from the kitchen. And there's a hood above it, and that hasn't had any complaints. So I suppose it's all right.
So if it's less noise than that, then no one's going to notice anyway, are they? Okay, thank you.
Alistair and then Isabel.
Yeah, just to reinforce what Mike is saying, because the number of times that this is going to be in operation is not that great. Full houses, we'd love to have them 3 days a week, but we don't get that. And so the Arts Festival may do a week, the theatre may do 8 or 10 days a year, I don't know. So, it's not something that's going to be happening every night. That was the first point. And the second point is that this system is controllable. So if we don't have a full house, you have a half a house, you can turn it down to operate more slowly and therefore would be quieter as well.
Excellent. Isabel?
I just wanted to ask a question on funding. The actual system is going to cost £5,000 and we are funding 2.5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Where's the other 2.5 coming from?
The village hall keeps a reserve for doing things, and whilst we've had a difficult year because we've been shut down for a lot of it, and even now, although we have bookings going on, the income is not what it was. But we did also receive a sort of grant to help us through this period, so I'm sure between our reserves and that grant, we will be able to match what we receive from the council. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Nandin?
Is it possible to use any of the heat on a heat recovery system at all?
Mike, he's put his hand up.
This is an extremely good question, and I actually covered it in my report. Yes, I would love to design a system that did mechanical ventilation heat recovery, and that would be exactly the right thing to do. The problem with it is that the estimate that we had for it, and we did get an estimate for it, was something like 2 to 3 times the price of the basic system itself. And if you actually frankly do a cost-benefit analysis, it would take something like 100 years to get the money back. And the second answer is, perhaps the more important answer is, we would mostly be running this system at full belt in the summer, because that's when the opera, the arts festival, theatre have had the real problem with an audience of 160, where it's got too hot. And that's the last time in the world that you want to do heat recovery, because you're trying to get rid of heat. When you run it for smaller events in the winter, as Alistair said, you'd be running it much slower. So the quantity of airflow is lower. But I totally agree that I would love to have any system designed with heat recovery, because we ought to be doing that today.
Okay. Any other questions before we go any further? Okay, I think, Sue, were you happy to propose this? Unmute yourself, darling.
Sorry.
Just another quick question.
Oh yeah, go Joe.
Oh, sorry, off the back of what Mike's just said, and obviously the fact that one of the reasons that both Judy and Sue has given is regarding COVID. So would it be being turned on more frequently at the moment? Whilst all, just so once it's installed, just to get the revenue going again and the use of the village hall going again, would it be on more frequently for that purpose?
Okay, I'll answer that. The quantity of ventilation that you're supposed to have in any new building is 10 litres per person per second. This system would have the capability of delivering that quantity of ventilation for 150 people. If you have a smaller group of people, we would be advising the users of the hall to turn it on to a low speed. So sort of bottom speed will be for 30 people, the next speed up will be for 60 people. And we'd certainly advise any exercise class, in particular dance class, to say, look, you ought to be putting this on at In fact, actually, I think we put into the risk assessments, we would probably expect that the new risk assessments for any user, because we have a very strict risk assessment process for the village hall usage during COVID, and we would expect the risk assessment to say that they would turn it on at an appropriate level for their group. And we'd expect that to carry on for the rest of life, actually. I mean, I don't think we're going to stop after COVID is supposedly gone.
Okay, Judy, you've got your hand up.
Well, that's what I particularly liked about this system, was that versatility, that you could scale it up or down, and you could use it for COVID or you could use it for ventilation. I don't think the other system was anything like as versatile.
So going back, Sue, were you going to
Yes,
make a
I
proposal?
was. Yeah, I was going to propose that we give the grant of £2,500 to the village hall for this system,
Okay.
as put down in the grant application.
Lovely. I've got
A seconder.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Who was
Glenys
that?
has
Sorry.
seconded it.
Glenys,
Glenys has seconded it. So all those in favour of
show a hand, please.
showing up with the £2,500 grant,
Oh,
show your hands.
That's pretty good. Thank you, Mike, for not voting.
Anybody against? No. Any abstentions? No. Brilliant. There we are. That's the grant sorted.
Mike, if you could send me the bank details, I can pay a back payment next week.
Oh, I've got them. I've got them.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. Thanks, Sue.
In the application. Well, thank you so much. That is really appreciated. Appreciated. And just one thing that I would like to say is what a narrow escape we've had, because 2 years ago, 1 year ago, we were looking at putting in air conditioning. This idea that you would have one of these air conditioning cooling systems that recirculates the same air and makes it cooler and therefore solves the hotness problem. And I'm just so grateful that we haven't done that, and that we're actually going to do something that's now widely considered correct for COVID. The world's changed. So thank you very much for supporting that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Great. Moving on to our next grant, which is item number 13, was to consider the annual burial grants to local churches.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. These are called burial grants. I don't know why. They've been about since Adam was a boy, I think. But it's a grant of £100 we make to 4 churches each year, to Theale, Blackford, the Methodist Church in Wedmore, and St Mary's. They get £100 each. The St Mary's one is deducted from their contribution, which they pay towards the grass cutting at the cemetery, because half of the cemetery is run or managed by the church. So it's just a question, please, of somebody proposing that the annual burial grants are made £100 to the 4 churches.
Landon, you proposing? Yeah. Who's the seconder?
I got Jackie.
Okay, Jackie, brilliant.
Everybody,
Show of hands, all those in favour?
Thank you, that's lovely.
Splendid, that's everyone. Great, well that concludes tonight's business, because those who came in late, because we all got chucked out the meeting last night, this is an extraordinary meeting tonight, so we could get those grants passed because we knew they were important. Any other business that was on the agenda we'll discuss in the December meeting. So you are all free to go. Thank you very much for the great attendance. Good night. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Good night.